Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel. What if a funeral meant to stay goodbye suddenly turned into the first clue of a murder mystery? Because what happened at Peaches Dupree's funeral left the entire community of Fairmont Crest shaken and questioning everything. The day of Peaches Dupree's funeral was supposed to be a moment of mourning for one of Fairmont Crest's most beloved socialities. But two shocking moments during the service, the unexpected arrival of a doctor and a disturbing accusation from a former assistant, turned a quiet farewell into the beginning of a dark and unsettling mystery. The morning of Peaches Dupree's funeral began with an eerie calm hanging over Fairmont Crest. The neighborhood was known for its pristine streets, elegant homes, and an atmosphere of quiet luxury, but that day the usual charm of the area felt strangely subdued. Outside the Dupree estate, at the nearby chapel, a long life of glossy Blake sedans and luxury town cars slowly pulled up one after another as members of the community arrived to pay their respects. Peaches Dupree had been more than just a familiar face in Fairmont Crest. She was a vibrant figure, someone whose presence seemed to fill every room she entered. People remembered her dazzling smile at galas, charity galas, her confident stride at fashion events, and the infectious laughter that echoed through the halls of the country club. She had lived boldly, surrounded by admiration and influence. But on this particular morning, the mood felt different. The sadness in the air wasn't just grief. For many of the people attending the funeral, there was also a sense of confusion, a quiet unease that something about Peach's sudden death simply didn't make sense. Inside the chapel, the atmosphere was solemn and heavy. The gentle sound of organ music drifted through the high ceilings, filling the room with a slow, mournful melody. At the front of the chapel stood a beautiful portrait of Peaches surrounded by carefully arranged white roses. In the photo, she looked radiant, dressed in a shimmering gold evening gown that perfectly captured the elegance she was famous for. Guests whispered softly as they settled into their seats. The Dupree family sat together in the front rows, doing their best to maintain composure. Some clutched each other's hands tightly, while others stared silently toward the casket, their expression distant and searching. Yet before the service had been begun, something unexpected happened that immediately caught several people's attention. Near the entrance of the chapel, Danny Dupree stood greeting mourners as they arrived. Danny had shared a close bond with Peaches for years, and the loss clearly weighed heavily on her. Her eyes were tired from grief, but she still managed to offer gentle words of comfort to those who came to express their condolences. Then suddenly, Danny stopped mid conversation. Her expression shifted instantly from sorrow to pure shock. Someone had just walked into the chapel when no one expected to see. Moving slowly down the aisle was Dr. Malcolm Reeves. Malcolm had been Peach's personal physician for some time, but his appearance that morning was both surprising and unsettling. Only days later, rumors had spread through Fairmont Crest that had quietly left town right after signing Peach's death certificate. Many people believed he had disappeared altogether, so seeing him suddenly appear at the funeral created an uncomfortable ripple across the room. What made the situation even stranger was the way he behaved. Instead of approaching the family to offer condolences, Malcolm kept his head slightly lowered and avoided eye contact with almost everyone. He moved quickly and quietly toward the back of the chapel, slipping into a seat far from the front rows. Danny watched him carefully. Something about his nervous demeanor felt wrong. According to the official report, Malcolm had signed Peach's death had been the result of a sudden cardiac event. Her heart had supposedly failed during the night without warning. But Danny couldn't stop remembering a conversation she'd had with Peaches just 1 week earlier. At the time, Peaches had laughed off concerns about her health. I feel perfectly fine. She had insisted. Malcolm keeps ordering tests, but honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with me. That memory now echoed loudly in Danny's mind. If Peaches had truly been healthy, how could her heart suddenly fail overnight? And if Malcolm believed everything was normal, why had he seemed so eager to disappear right after her death? Those questions lingered in Danny's thoughts as the service finally began. The pastor stepped forward and began speaking warmly about Peach's life. He described her as a woman with a generous spirit, someone who loved fiercely and lived without hesitation. His words painted a picture of a person who had brought joy to countless lives throughout Fairmont Crest. Several members of the family wiped away tears as the tribute continued. But Danny struggled to focus. Her mind kept drifting back to the back row of the chapel, where Malcolm sat quietly, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Then, halfway through the ceremony, something happened that no one in the room could have predicted. As the choir prepared to perform one of Peach's favorite hymns, the quiet reverence of the moment was suddenly shattered. A chair scraped loudly against the polished chapel floor. Everyone turned toward the sound. Standing in the third row was Eva Thomas. Eva had once worked closely with the Dupree family as a personal assistant years ago. However, she had left the household under circumstances that few people fully understood. Her departure had always been surrounded by quiet speculation, so her sudden appearance at the funeral was already surprising. But what she said next stunned the entire room. Her voice trembled as she spoke, her eyes fixed on the casket. I'm sorry, she said softly, but something about this doesn't feel right. Immediately, murmurs spread through the chapel. The pastor gently asked Eva to sit down so the service could continue, trying to maintain the solemn atmosphere of the furniture funeral, but Eva refused. Her eyes filled with tears as she shook her head. Peaches told me she was scared. Eva continued, her voice breaking. She believed someone was trying to poison her. The room fell into complete silence. Danny felt her heart slam against her chest. Across the chapel, Dr. Malcolm Reeves shifted nervously in his seat. Guests began whispering among themselves. Some looked furious that Eva had interrupted the funeral with such a shocking claim. Others appeared deeply unsettled by the possibility she had just raised. The pastor once again tried to restore calm, insisting the ceremony should remain focused on honoring Peach's memory. Eventually, Eva reluctantly sat down, but the tension she created lingered heavily in the air. By the time the service ended, the peaceful farewell had transformed into something far more complicated. Outside the chapel, small groups of guests gathered in the courtyard, speaking in harsh voices about Eva's disturbing statement. Danny didn't waste a moment. She approached Eva once the crowd began thinking. What did you mean back there? Danny asked quietly, guiding her away from curious ears. Eva hesitated before answering. She glanced nervously toward the parking lot as if worried someone might overhear. Peaches called me 3 nights before she died. Eva finally explained. She sounded frightened. She said she didn't trust anyone around her anymore. Danny felt a chill crawl up her spine. Eva continued, she believed someone had been messing with her medication. Danny's voice dropped to a whisper. Did she say who? Eva slowly shook her head. No, but she kept repeating the same thing. She told me that if anything happened to her, someone needed to look closer. While that conversation unfolded, another tense exchange was taking place across the courtyard. Dr. Malcolm Reeves had been stopped by Bill Hamilton, one of the Dupree family's longtime legal advisors. Bill spoke calmly, but his tone carried a sharp edge. Doctor, he said, I heard you left town rather suddenly after signing Peach's death certificate. Malcolm swallowed hard. I had other patients who needed my attention, he replied quickly. Bill studied him carefully before continuing. Strange thing, Bill said, Peach's medical records show she never had a history of heart disease. Malcolm didn't respond. Instead, he quickly excused himself and hurried toward his car. From across the courtyard, Danny noticed the exchange and watched as Malcolm drove away. His behavior only deepened her suspicions. Later that evening, several members of the Dupree family gathered back at the estate for a quiet reception. Normally, these gatherings were filled with warm memories and comforting stories about the person they had lost. But that night felt different. The mood was tense and uneasy. Eva's shocking statement had changed everything. What should have been a simple farewell had now become the beginning of a troubling mystery. Danny couldn't shake the growing belief that Peach's death had been carefully disguised to appear natural. The doctor's strange behavior and Eva's claims about poisoning suggested a terrifying possibility. Someone might have wanted Peaches gone. Later that night, Danny sat alone in her room at the estate, staring out the window at the darkened grounds. Sleep felt impossible. Memories of Peaches laughter echoed through her thoughts. Peaches had always been strong, confident, and perceptive. If she believed someone was trying to harm her, Danny couldn't ignore the possibility that her instincts had been correct. And if that was true, the person responsible might still be dangerously close. The next morning brought another disturbing development. Bill Hamilton called Danny with new information. He had tried to retrieve Peach's complete medical records from Dr. Malcolm Reeves' clinic. But when he contacted the office, he discovered something alarming. The files were gone. According to the clinic staff, someone had removed the records late night before the funeral. No one knew who had taken them. For Danny, that revelation confirmed her growing fear. Peach's death might not have been a tragic accident. It might have been something far more sinister. And those two strange moments during the funeral, the unexpected appearance of Dr. Malcolm Reeves and Eva's chilling claim about poisoning, might have been the first clues pointing toward a hidden truth. As the sun rose over Fairmont Crest the following morning, Danny realized something with absolute certainty. Peaches Dupree's funeral hadn't been the end of the story. It was the moment the real story had finally begun. The fallout from these events is enormous. A funeral that should have brought closer instead opened a door to suspicion and fear. The sudden appearance of Dr. Malcolm Reeves raises serious questions about the official cause of death, especially when combined with Eva's accusation that Peaches feared she was being poisoned. The disappearance of medical records only deepens the mystery and suggests that someone may be actively trying to hide the truth. For the Dupree family, the consequences could be devastating. If Peach's death was not natural, then the betrayal might be coming from someone within their own circle. Honestly, the storyline is gripping because it takes something as emotional as a funeral and transforms it into the start of a suspenseful mystery. The moment Eva stood up in the chapel and revealed what Peaches told her, that was the turning point. From that point forward, everything changes. Suddenly, every character becomes a possible suspect, and every detail from Peach's final days feels important. Personally, I think Danny is right to trust her instincts. Too many things don't add up, and the missing medical records are a massive red flag. So now the big question is this: was Peaches Dupree truly the victim of a tragic medical event? Or was someone secretly responsible for her death all along? Who do you think might be hiding the truth? Could Dr. Malcolm Reeves be involved? Or is someone even closer to Dupree family pulling the strings? Let me know your theories down in the comments because this mystery is just getting started. And if you enjoyed diving into this dramatic story with me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the biggest twists and secrets.